For many of you, this video will be a rehash of material that you've already learned in previous regression classes, or in stats classes. But this is an important step to kind of tie together everything for interpretation and for plotting for moderation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to review some of the simple slope and simple intercept computations so that everybody understands what these mean. So to begin with, what I want to do is I just want to summarize what we've gotten so far from our models. And I'm going to change this, and you can see here that we have a moderation effect where y is predicted by both x1 and x2, as well as the moderation, the multiplicative term x1 and x2. Now you'll notice that I didn't multiply it here, but I specified it as an interaction. This is the same data that we've been going over before, and this will be data that I'll distribute to everybody. So the summary allows us to then extract the coefficients. This is nothing more than just pulling off the intercept. This is B1, B2, and B3. And as you've learned before, or if this is new to you, simple slopes and simple intercepts are just a way to partition off all of these parameters so that you can define a very simple bivariate model, but in terms of multivariate multiple predictors. So in this case, what we have is we have a single criterion y, and it's a function of x1 and some intercept. So this term right here is our simple slope, because what we're going to do is we're just going to look to see how x1 affects y. So we'll use x1 as because it's our primary predictor, and x2 is our moderator. So we have our simple slope right here, and similarly we have our simple intercept. So how do we get those parts? Well, b1 is just the regression parameter for x1, and b3 is our regression parameter for our moderation coefficient. Now, why is it that b3 is part of the simple slope? Well, it's because b3 also has x1 in it. Remember that b3, this moderation effect, this is a weight, a regression coefficient for x1 times x2. So therefore, we should be able to algebraically express x1 as or b1 as a coefficient of x1, and b3 as a coefficient of x2 times x1. And so that's why we can create this as a simple slope. Similarly, the simple intercept has both the intercept value, b0, as well as b2, because the moderator, in this case x2, the moderator affects the intercept. And so if we have a significant moderator, what will happen is we'll have significantly different slopes between our groups. Okay, group meaning that our x2 is our moderator, and oftentimes the easiest way to express the moderator, the easiest way is to have a binary moderator. That doesn't mean that moderators must be binary. It just means that it's an easy way to represent them. So I can calculate all of these coefficients, and what I want to do is I'm going to calculate these coefficients and give names to them. And in this case, I'm going to give b0 and b1, and that's not because these are the true b0 and b1s from our regression model, but this is going to be our slope parameter when x2 is 0. And this one is going to be our slope parameter when x2 is equal to 1, because x2 is a binary variable. That's what I created it. It has zeros and ones, and that's it. So I've created 0 and 1 moderator to simplify this. And what you can see is that the slope changes based upon the moderator, and we know that because we have a significant moderation effect. Okay, and that simple moderation effect can be expressed in terms of these simple slopes. Simple slope, now what we have is we have a simple intercept here for x2 is equal to 0 and x2 is equal to 1. So now what we have is simple slopes and simple intercepts. And these simple slopes and simple intercepts now can be expressed in terms of different equations. And those different equations are helpful in us understanding plots, because now what we can do is we can express these effects in terms of different plots, which will be the following video. So in order to understand these different plots, if you break down these constituent parts into simple intercepts and simple slopes, it's really easy to then plot the results. Now, probably the most typical question that comes up when I'm explaining this to graduate students is that they say, well, okay, what happens when you have two continuous predictors and you also have a moderated effect between two continuous predictors? Now, in order for the simple slopes and simple intercepts to work, in order for it to work logically and simply, is that a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll do bivariate median splits on continuous variables. And we're going to talk about why that's a very bad idea. But the heuristic value is just fine. That when you're displaying these effects, if you're just trying to figure out what the effect is and get a grasp of the underlying effect and the significance and the impact of the significant moderation and the significant effect of your moderator, that the bivariate median split has great heuristic value. So don't be afraid of doing that type of step. Instead, what you would do is you'd take a continuous predictor and you'd break it up into some constituent parts, either a median split, so you get two parts, or you break it up into quartiles. If however many breaks helps you interpret the interaction, then go for it. So don't be limited by what you do based upon what people are saying about statistical tests and all of that. This is simple slopes and simple intercepts is a very easy way for being able to observe interaction or moderated multiple regression. In the next video, I'm going to talk about plotting interactions and how plotting interactions can really bring forth all of these things. But if you understand simple slopes and simple intercepts, the plots are really simple.